Hey everybody, welcome to episode 4 of Drum Stories. Here we are again on a beautiful Sunday, Wisconsin Sunday night. If you're in Wisconsin, it was a beautiful day, at least in the southeast here. I think the first 80-degree day we've had, so if there's anybody tuning in today, I'd be really surprised because I'll bet you everybody's outside doing something. That's where I'd be if I wasn't here doing this, but that's where I'm at now. And just want to say thanks for whoever's tuning in today, and appreciate anybody pitching any donations in. If not, hey, just hang out. Good to see you. And if I could see you, I'd be seeing you, but I'm not seeing you. Anyways, so today, just want to let you know that if this is the first time you're tuning in, that I cannot see any comments. So if there is anybody making any comments or questions or heckling me or whatever it is, I can't see it. I will see it after the show, and I'd be happy to respond if there's any questions or whatever. More than happy to engage that. Today's show, if you will, we're going to feature one of my favorite drummers of all time. We're going to talk about the great Levon Helm. There he is. Full beard and old drums and stuff. Drummer for the band. The Band. There you go. If you don't know who they are, then today will be a bit of an education for you. If you do, well, then probably everything I'm going to say you already know, because the things that I'm influenced by with Levon Helm and the band are pretty common. But anyways, part of the point of this whole show and me doing this little moment of speaking about an artist is to just disclose a little bit about how they've inspired me and some of the things I've picked up, and just, I don't know, for me to just tell you how much I love their music. Anyways, so before that, I'm going to play a couple tunes. The first thing was a bit of an improv using some of my electronics. Let me show you this over here. If you can see, this is the old Tama Techstar pads that I got from my good buddy Dave Bauman from the band Bleed, one of my favorite local bands, by the way. And then I've got an old Simmons electronic drum pad as well, with a brain down here and some stuff and some loopers, and here's a loop that I had going there for a minute. It's probably making you some of you very nervous. It's kind of a nervous sounding loop. And I got a little effects unit over here that does stuff. There's that nonsense. And so I was hitting buttons, kicking things with my feet, and doing stuff like that. And then back over to this camera. Hi. So that's what that was, a bit of an improv, some stuff that just came to me today. And I try to do a little bit of an improv every show because I can't do any shows anywhere other than here. So I like to do some improvisation if I can, when I can, and today was it. Anyways, so I'm going to move on to some music from my album Drums on Low. I'm trying to play a couple of these tracks every show. Here is the cover. And album is available on Bandcamp or on my website, daveschoepke.com. I think there's some posting here through the stream. My wife is also posting links to things. Anyways, I'm going to play a track from that album. This is called War of the Grasshoppers is what this one is. So thanks for showing up, you guys. I'm going to play a couple tunes. I'm going to play these two back to back. It's going to be War of the Grasshoppers, and then it's going to be 11-3. And then maybe I'll talk a little bit, and then we'll do Levon Helm, and I'll blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that stuff. All right. Thanks for stopping by. Hold tight. Hi again. Okay. That was 2 tracks from my solo album, Drums on Low. If this is your first time tuning in to this event, Facebook Live, COVID-19, 2020, no gigs for anyone, anywhere. Not making a joke of it, but there are no gigs. So this is my gig as of late. It's kind of fun to do this. It's kind of freaky, kind of weird, just talking to myself, looking at myself in a picture here. But anyways, that's what's happening today. And it's the 4th episode of Drum Stories. I call it Drum Stories because sometimes I have a story that goes along with my topic. And my topic today is the band. Well, it's actually Levon Helm. And that's this guy right here. I've had a lot of coffee today, so I'm pretty fired up. Okay. So, the last couple weeks, if you've been able to tune in, I've talked about different drummers. And let's see, first week was John Bonham. Second week was Clyde Stubblefield. Third week was Bill Bruford. And what I've been doing for each of these past episodes was to play some of their music and then talk about some of the things that inspired me about their playing and demonstrate a little bit about what they were doing on a particular track. Now, today is going to be a little bit different because I've been getting flagged by Facebook for displaying content of cover music that I do not own. So I can't do that anymore. I can't even play a little section of the song. I tried a couple different test runs on this to just see if I could get some of it past and trying different things with EQ and stuff. Not that I'm trying to be a crook. I'm just trying to use the music so I can demonstrate. Obviously, I'm not stealing it. I own it, but I don't know the copyright, so I can't do that. Anyways, here I am again. So I have to just talk about the music, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the stuff that I'm talking about. So first things first, I'm talking about Levon Helm. That was that guy that I just had up on the picture for the last, minute or two. Levon Helm, who's passed now a few years ago, was the drummer for the band, and he was also one of the lead vocalists. If you don't know who Levon is and you're a drummer, get to it now and check him out. In my opinion, and all the things I'm going to say right now are my opinion, fact or whatever, this is just what I think. In my opinion, Levon is one of the more unique drummers in rock music. What's cool about Levon? Well, there's a number of things that are cool about Levon, but one of the things that always impressed me about him, or I should say interested me about him, is that he's one of the he's one of the throwbacks to the beginning of rock and roll. So he was on the scene in the late 50s when rock and roll was really coming of age, being invented. And he was there. He saw Elvis in the beginning and all that stuff, and he was playing at a young age in a lot of the places that those folks were. And he got to see a lot of that stuff up close. He's really, technically not first generation rock and roll, but pretty darn close. And what I always enjoyed about Levon is that his character on the instrument is so unique, and that's one of the things I've been talking about with everybody or with all these drummers in the last couple of weeks, is how unique they are, and what at least to me, why I've been inspired by them, and it's been usually because I've been drawn to these qualities about their playing that in my opinion, are just very extraordinary. And Levon, that's just, I'm going to throw up a couple pieces of literature quick, so if anybody's interested here. Levon, he wrote a book called This Wheel's on Fire. Here it is. If there's anybody out there looking for something to read. This book is incredible. It's all about the history of the band from his perspective. it's very, very good. A lot of insight into how he did what he did, and about how he how things worked in the band. Also, this book, which I've had for years, written by Max Weinberg of the E Street Band, Bruce Springsteen. It's just a really fantastic outline of different players from the kind of the early stages of rock and roll, but Levon's in there. A lot of really great information on Levon in this book too. So, okay, enough about all that. If you're interested, those books are available. I'm pretty sure The Big Beat is still available. Anyways, highly recommend them both for drummers or non-drummers, just musicians looking for something interesting to read. Anyways, so here we go. Levon. Why do I think he's such a big deal? A couple things. Number one, he was a fantastic singer. And so what? That's not drumming, right? Okay, I know that. But one of the things Levon did when he recorded his drum parts is he sang a lot of his lead vocals at the same time, which is an incredible thing if you think about it. Not only technically and just coordination-wise, putting that all together to have an expressive musical part, but then all the technical challenges of the leakage of microphones and trying to control your sound correctly so that it comes across in a good way, and you're not, because the microphones, they bleed into one another and there's all sorts of crosstalk. So generally lead singers would, even if, especially a drummer, would do their vocals separately. Not Levon. He would have to do some miscellaneous takes afterwards to fix things, or if they were going to add stuff. But back then they were using 4-track machines, which meant there was very limited options, so a lot of it had to be done live. And Levon was just one of those cats that could do it. And what's interesting about him is that also in turn affected his drum parts. And he talks about that not so much in those books, but there's also a documentary on the band. Here's the album that we're going to talk about here in a second. Documentary on this album. They talk about the recording of it and how they did it. And he would record his drum parts and sing at the same time, which I think is just an incredible thing. And these songs have, if you're not familiar with the band, there's a very unique sort of approach to what they were doing. It's some people say it's the beginning of Americana. Maybe, I'm not sure. But there's all these hybrids of influences that cross-section with their approach. And they're all monster musicians, monster songwriters. Everything is just very, very unique in the way they did. I've said unique about 3 million times. So what's unique about it? One of the things that I think is unique about Levon is the way he would phrase his drum parts, especially in this era that he was coming up into prominence. You had a lot of bombast happening at the same time of Bonham, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple's happening, Cream, Ginger Baker. Lots of drummers are really getting loud and being very bombastic. Lots of cymbal, a lot of stuff like that. Cool stuff too, but different. And Levon was coming from a much more subtle approach. For example, one of the things that he does a lot is he hardly ever hits a crash cymbal. Now, I've only got just one cymbal up here, but lots of times he'll play a beat, and he'll do a fill, and there's no crash. He just comes back to the beat, which, okay, it's not the most unique thing ever, but it's not a real common thing. And from a drummer's perspective, it's kind of like an automation. Drummers do a fill, and they hit a crash cymbal. Levon didn't do much of that. In fact, a lot of times he never even hit a crash in a song. And he would use it, and I think part of the reason why he would do this, and he talks about this in one of his interviews, is he would have to play the drums relatively soft when he was tracking, because he was singing at the same time. He didn't sing every tune, but at least on the tunes that he was singing, because you can't play the drums so loud because they're going to bleed into the mic. This thing right here, I'm talking into, he's singing into it. If he's singing, he's drumming, it's all going to go into this microphone. So he's got to play in a way that's going to be very dynamic. So maybe that shaped the way he approached things. He didn't say in the interview that I saw, but I got to think that it had something to do with it. If not, it's it's interesting. So he comes out of a fill and he's just right back to the beat. So like, for example, I'm just going to kind of do a mishmash of like my emulation of like what he would do from a song, Chest Fever, which is on their first album, not this one. Songs from Big Pink. So if he's playing the groove, he comes out of the groove and he goes into this fill. Kind of like that. I'm not playing it exactly the way he does, but it's kind of janky. It's got kind of like this offbeat thing. And here's the other thing that's cool about the way he would play in the rhythm section. Bass player Rick Danko. They were extremely funky, in my opinion, as funky as anything James Brown ever did. For example, I'm not saying more funky, but as funky as anything that James Brown did. For example, a song called King Harvest. They do the chorus and the breakdown. They come back to the tune, and he's got, instead of doing like a fancy fill coming back, he does this super cool thing with either his ride cymbal or his hi-hat, and he comes to this, and then they go into this. Again, I'm going to kind of just do my version of the groove, but it's pretty close. Something like that. And it's just this kind of neat little that sort of thing. Again, super funky. Kind of this kind of keeps you off balance sort of thing. Another thing Levon would do, which I thought was super cool, is he would use his kick drum a lot in his fills. And the way that he would do it is, and I mean, lots of people use their bass drum in a fill, but Levon would do it instead of all the other drums. So for example, on a song called Across the Great Divide, again from the second album, what the Brown album I just put up, see if I can pull this off. He does a super cool fill. Here we go. One more time. Now, that, okay, it's not the most impossible fill to play, but it's adventurous. It's like, I'm just going for it. I'm going to do this thing. And a lot of times, when people will play fills, they'll do things that, maybe incorporate the bass drum. For example, like singles, things like that. But to do a full triplet, I think it's really adventurous, and it says a lot about, maybe it's just my opinion, but it says a lot about the approach of the group, where they, if it works for the identity of the band, that's cool. Anyways, one last thing that I love about Levon Helm, and it's also a characteristic of the group, is Levon, lots of times when he would come into the beginning of a song, he would just hit the kick drum. And sometimes just on the first note. And so, for example, like that song, Across the Great Divide, he just comes in with the kick, and then the groove. So you get like, and then there's that, and then he comes into the groove. So it's like there's like an intro. Again, I wish I could play the track, but I can't. If you can go find it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But anyways, it says. Just that double kick, boom, boom, and then he's into the groove. Again, just kind of different, you know. And then the last thing, again, back with that bass drum sort of thing, in the song, The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down, he comes in, the band comes in on this weird upbeat thing. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure they discussed it, but the tune starts with a kick on the bass drum, boom, ba-boom, ba-boom, boom, and then there's an upbeat just with the kick. And well, the band all lands on it, but the kick drum is what you hear the most. And again, most people would just go boom on the one, but they come in on the upbeat, and it just gives it this weird thing. It's one of those things where if you were in the midst of doing it, some people would go, oh, well, don't do that, that's weird. But again, as they were working together in the relationship with the group, it probably was like, hey, this is kind of a unique way to come into the song. Instead of just, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, we're in on one, they're going to go 1, 2, 3, and then they're into the groove. Again, stuff that I think is really neat. So that's Levon Helm. Tons of music by him that is out there to check out. In my opinion, the first four albums by the band are really worth going after and checking out. In particular, that second album, the Brown album. This guy here. It's just got tons of great music. But here's the oddball to the whole thing. So here I am blabbering on and on about Levon Helm and how great he is, and he, in my opinion, was one of the more ridiculously crazy things about this group is that this guy over here, Richard Manuel, played drums too. And one of the things that the band would do is they would switch instruments. So Levon, this is Levon here. Levon would play mandolin and sing, or just play mando, whatever. And they would kind of do like a different version of the band for different tunes. And Richard would play drums. Richard is easily as funky. I mean, he has got a thing about his playing. And one of the things that in the book that Levon wrote, one of the things that he says about Richard is when he came back to the band, they were initially, if you don't know the history of the band, they were Bob Dylan's backup band in their mid-'60s for a couple tours. And Levon left the group, and when he left and he came back and those guys got back together, Richard had started playing drums. Richard he plays piano with the group, and he also sings lead, but he started playing drums. And Levon says in the book, he's like, he immediately became his favorite drummer, which is saying a lot considering Levon grew up amongst some of the greatest. And I mean, that's how great Richard Manuel was as a drummer. And to prove that, he does a drum break on the song Rag Mama Rag, which until I read the book and found out it was Richard, I would have sworn that it was that it was Levon. So anyways, two ridiculously great drummers. The whole band was, I don't know, obnoxiously good. So there's that. There's the band, if you don't know about them, in Levon Helm. So I'm going to do a little more playing. One thing that's going to be a little different today is I'm going to do another improv. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll finish with another track from my solo album. So hold tight. I'm going to switch to the Triple Dave camera view here. There we are, 3 of me at once. How exciting. And this is just going to be a little improv. I have no idea what it's going to be, but I'm going to go for it, and hope you dig it. All right, everybody. I've got one more track for you. But before I do it, I want to just tell you quick. Oh, by the way, that was an improv. I just want to say quick that next week, it's this guy, Alvin Jones. If you do not know who Alvin Jones is, then please tune in next week because I will be speaking about him. I think one of the most influential drummers out there in a weird way. Some people have other opinions, but I think he's one of the most influential, and I just could not escape him myself. I love Alvin Jones, and I will be talking about him. I'm certainly not an expert on him or any of these people, to be honest with you, but I just have my own opinions and things that I'm inspired by about them. So that is who's coming up for next week. So I'm going to play one more track from my solo album, Drums on Low. This is 426. Hang on here. Let me switch this. Here we go. Going for the top view today. All right. This is the last track. Thanks, everybody, for coming out to the Facebook Live Drum Stories thing. All right. All right. This is 426. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out for this last 45 minutes to an hour. Be sure to jump back next Sunday, 7 p.m. Central Time for another episode of Drum Stories. And if anybody's had a chance to donate, I really, really, really appreciate it. If not, come back anyways, and I'm just happy to have you here. Thanks again. Happy Memorial Day to everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye.